How money loses value. Explained like you're 5. In 1971, a cup of coffee cost 25 cents. Today, that same cup costs $5. Same coffee, same cup, same country. But somehow your dollar buys 95% less of it. You didn't get poorer on paper, your bank account didn't shrink, but everything around you got more expensive. And if you ask an economist why, they'll tell you it's normal, expected, even healthy. That should bother you. This is the story of how money loses value, not because it breaks, not because someone steals it, but because of something far stranger, something happening right now while you watch this video. Let's start with something simple. Imagine you're 5 years old. You have $1, you walk into a store, and you can buy one candy bar. Life is good. Now imagine you put that dollar under your pillow for 10 years. When you come back, the dollar is still there. It hasn't been touched, it hasn't been damaged. It's the exact same piece of paper. But when you walk into the store, the candy bar now costs $2. Your dollar didn't disappear, it didn't burn, it just stopped working as well. Like a battery that slowly drains even when it's not being used. That's inflation. And the terrifying part, it never stops. In the last 100 years, the US dollar has lost roughly 97% of its purchasing power, which means if your great-grandparents saved $100 in 1924, that same $100 today buys what $3 used to. You can still hold it, you can still deposit it, but it's weaker, quieter, less useful. And here's the part nobody tells you when you're 5. This isn't an accident. So what's really happening? How does money just lose value sitting still? The answer is almost absurdly simple. More money gets created. And when there's more of something, each individual piece becomes less valuable. Think of it like pizza. If you and your friend share one pizza, you each get half. But if 10 people show up, suddenly you're getting one slice. Same pizza, more people. Your share got smaller. Money works the same way. When a government prints more dollars, or when banks create more money through loans, the total supply increases, and your share of the economy's value shrinks, not because you lost money, but because everyone else got more. Now, here's where it gets weird. Governments don't hide this. They do it openly, on purpose, and they'll tell you it's for your own good. The Federal Reserve, the central bank of the United States, has an official inflation target. Right now, it's 2% per year. That means they actively tried to make your money lose 2% of its value every single year. Why? Because they believe it keeps the economy moving. If money loses value over time, you're incentivized to spend it or invest it instead of hiding it under your pillow. Businesses borrow, people buy. The economy grows. In theory, everyone wins. In practice, it's more complicated. Let's run the numbers. At 2% inflation, your money loses half its value every 35 years. That might not sound dramatic, but think about what it means. If you're 30 years old and you save $50,000 for retirement, by the time you're 65, that $50,000 buys what $25,000 buys today. You didn't spend it, you didn't lose it, you just waited, and waiting made you poorer. Now imagine inflation isn't 2%. Imagine it's 5% or 8% or 10%. Suddenly, that 35 years becomes 14 years or 9 or 7. Your money doesn't just lose value, it collapses. And here's the really uncomfortable part. Inflation doesn't hit everyone equally. If you own assets, things like stocks, real estate, or gold, inflation can actually help you because the price of those assets tends to rise along with inflation, sometimes faster. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or if your savings are just sitting in a bank account earning 0.5% interest while inflation runs at 3%, you're falling behind, slowly, quietly, every single month. The system isn't neutral. It rewards people who already have wealth, and it punishes people who are still building it.
So who controls this? Who decides how much money gets printed and when? In the U.S., it's the Federal Reserve, a central bank that's technically independent from the government but works closely with it. The Fed has two main jobs: keep unemployment low and keep inflation stable. To do this, they control interest rates and the money supply. When the economy slows down, they lower interest rates and print more money to encourage borrowing and spending. When the economy heats up, they raise rates and pull money out to cool things down. Sounds reasonable, balanced, scientific. But here's the catch. The people making these decisions are human, and humans make mistakes. In 2008, during the financial crisis, the Fed printed trillions of dollars to save the banking system. In 2020, during the pandemic, they printed trillions more to keep the economy from collapsing. Both times they said it was necessary, and maybe it was. But printing money doesn't create value, it just spreads the existing value thinner. Someone pays for it, and it's usually not the people who cause the problem. Now, economists will tell you that moderate inflation is healthy, that it's a sign of a growing economy, that deflation, when prices fall, is actually worse because it discourages spending and causes economic stagnation. And they're not wrong. Deflation can be brutal. If people expect prices to drop, they delay purchases, businesses delay investments, the economy grinds to a halt. But here's what they don't emphasize. Inflation is a hidden tax. You don't see it on a receipt, you don't get a bill, but it's there, constantly, taking a small piece of your wealth every year and redistributing it. And unlike a real tax, you can't vote on it, you can't opt out, you just live with it. The promise is simple. Give up a little purchasing power every year, and in return, you get a stable, growing economy, jobs, opportunity, progress. But what happens when the inflation isn't 2%? What happens when it spikes to 7%, like it did in 2021, or 9%, like it did in 2022? Suddenly, your rent goes up, your groceries cost more, your car insurance doubles, and your paycheck stays the same. That's when the system stops feeling stable. That's when people start asking uncomfortable questions. Here's the thing about money losing value. It's not just an economic policy, it's a social contract. The government says, trust us, use our currency, save it, build your life around it. And in return, they promise to keep it stable, to protect its value, to make sure that the dollar you earn today will still mean something tomorrow. But every time they print more money, they break that promise, just a little, just enough that most people don't notice, until they do. Throughout history, governments have destroyed their own currencies, not through war, not through invasion, but through inflation. In Germany in the 1920s, hyperinflation got so bad that people used wheelbarrows full of cash to buy bread. In Zimbabwe in the 2000s, they printed a $100 trillion bill. It wasn't enough to buy a loaf of bread. These aren't ancient stories. These happened in modern economies, with central banks, with economists, with people who thought they had it under control. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. It's the most trusted money on the planet. But trust isn't permanent. It's earned, and it can be lost. Right now, the U.S. national debt is over $34 trillion. That's trillion with a T, and it's growing by roughly $2 trillion every year. At some point, the math stops working. At some point, printing money stops being a solution and starts being the problem. We're not there yet, but we're closer than we've ever been. So what do you do? How do you protect yourself when the money itself is the thing losing value? Some people buy gold, some buy real estate, some buy Bitcoin. The logic is the same. If money is getting weaker, hold something that isn't money. But here's the irony. All of those things are priced in dollars, which means you're still stuck in the same system. You're just trying to stay ahead of it. And that's the real trick. Inflation doesn't destroy money all at once. It does it slowly, steadily, so slowly that by the time you notice, it's already too late to avoid. You can't stop it. You can't vote it away. You can only adapt or fall behind. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Money loses value because the people in charge decided it should, not because they're evil, not because they want to hurt you, but because they believe it's the least bad option. And maybe they're right. Maybe a little inflation is better than the alternative. Maybe losing 2% a year is the price we pay for stability. But that doesn't mean you have to like it. The candy bar that cost a quarter in 1971 now costs $5, and 50 years from now it'll probably cost 20. Same candy bar, same country, same promise that everything's fine. The only difference, you'll need more dollars to buy it, and fewer dollars to show for the ones you've saved. That's how money loses value, slowly, quietly, and with your permission.